On August 16, 1977, the world was told Elvis Presley was dead. But what if that announcement wasn't the truth? What if it was the beginning of the biggest lie in music history? In 2016, a tourist filming at Graceland captured something impossible on camera. A groundskeeper working near the mansion, a man who moved like Elvis, looked like Elvis, and vanished before anyone could get close enough to be sure. Graceland said it was just an employee named Bill, but Bill was never seen again. And that video has now been watched more than 40 million times by people asking the same question. Was that really just a groundskeeper? This isn't the only anomaly. It's not even close. There was the funeral where mourners touched a body that felt ice cold in 90-degree heat. The death certificate listing heart failure, while toxicology reports revealed 14 powerful drugs in his system. An FBI file showing Elvis worked as an informant against organized crime, making him a target for assassination. And financial records revealing Elvis was nearly bankrupt, trapped by a manager who took half of everything he earned. And then there are the sightings. Over 400 documented reports in 46 years. From librarians, gas station attendants, grocery store clerks, ordinary people in ordinary places who swear they saw the king living like a regular man, hiding in plain sight. Tonight, we're not telling you what to believe. We're showing you what doesn't add up, and asking why. Nearly 5 decades later, this question refuses to die. If you were alive in August 1977, you remember exactly where you were. The radio DJ's voice cracking, Walter Cronkite's grave expression, the newspaper headlines screaming those impossible words. Elvis Presley, dead at 42, found on a bathroom floor. It felt too small, too ordinary, too wrong for a man who had spent 23 years as the voice of rebellion. Elvis didn't just sing songs. He changed how teenagers moved, how parents worried, how freedom felt. When Ed Sullivan's producers filmed him only from the waist up in 1956 because his hip movements were too dangerous for television, Elvis became more than a singer. He became a revolution, and legends like that don't die quietly, unless they needed the world to believe they did. The funeral happened fast, too fast. August 18th, just 2 days later. Medical examiners typically require more time, especially in cases involving potential drug complications. But Elvis's body was released with unusual speed, as if someone wanted burial completed before too many questions could be asked. 30,000 mourners lined up outside Graceland in brutal Memphis heat, temperature above 95 degrees, humidity making it feel like 110. Inside, an open copper casket displayed Elvis in a white suit, hair perfectly styled, hands folded across his chest. But people who filed past that casket noticed details that didn't align with what they knew about death, about bodies, about the man they had loved for decades. The body felt cold, not cool, refrigerator cold, ice cold. Several mourners reported touching the hand felt like touching wax kept in a freezer. No give to the skin, no natural texture, no sense this had ever been living tissue. The face looked wrong. The nose seemed slightly different. The jawline softer than Elvis's distinctively strong jaw. The eyebrows positioned just a fraction higher than recent photographs showed. Individually minor. Collectively they created a face that resembled Elvis but didn't quite capture him. Elvis's longtime hairdresser, who had styled his hair for over a decade, later told reporters the hair wasn't his. She knew its texture, thickness, the way it responded to styling. The hair on that body was too perfect, too uniform. It looked like an extremely high-quality wig. And then there was the perspiration issue. Everyone in that foyer was sweating. The air conditioning couldn't handle Memphis August heat. Television lights, body heat of hundreds cycling through every hour. Security guards were drenched. Family members dabbed their faces. Mourners emerged with clothes stuck to their backs. But the body remained completely dry. Not a drop of moisture. Dead bodies don't perspire, but they do release fluids when exposed to extreme heat. This body released nothing. It remained perfectly dry and cool to the touch, as if it wasn't biological at all. The death certificate listed cardiac arrhythmia, heart failure, natural causes. The certificate made no mention of drugs, No indication of intoxication. Then the toxicology report leaked. 14 different drugs in Elvis's blood. Codeine at 10 times therapeutic level. Methaqualone. Morphine. Demerol. Valium. Placidol. Amytal. A pharmaceutical cocktail that pharmacologists described as almost certainly fatal. Yet the initial death certificate made no mention of any of it. Dr. Francisco claimed he hadn't received toxicology results before signing, an explanation that raised more questions. Medical examiners don't typically issue cause of death before toxicology reports are complete. Dr. George Nikopoulos, Elvis's personal physician, gave interviews where his story changed each time. First, Elvis took medication as prescribed, then maybe a few extra pills. Then Elvis was struggling but improving. Finally, he admitted writing prescriptions for over 10,000 pills in 8 months, more than 40 pills per day. Too many pills. Too many contradictions, unless the contradictions were intentional. 2 months before his death, Elvis told Red West, "I'm tired, Red. I'm so tired of being Elvis Presley." There was weight to those words. Finality. "I just want to be a normal person. I want to walk down a street without riots. I want to go to a movie without the theater shutting down. I want to exist without being Elvis." Red tried to lighten the mood, but Elvis shook his head. The only way to stop being Elvis is to stop being Elvis. The phrasing was odd, circular. Red didn't understand at the time. Looking back, he wondered if Elvis had been telling him exactly what he planned. Larry Geller, Elvis's spiritual advisor, reported more specific conversations in July. Elvis talked about death and rebirth, about witness protection programs. He asked detailed questions about how the government could erase someone's identity, create a completely new person with verifiable documentation. He wanted to know if someone could disappear that thoroughly. These weren't casual musings. These were detailed, logistical questions about disappearance mechanics. Elvis was thinking through the process, step by step, treating it like a plan needing refinement rather than abstract speculation. What most people don't know is that Elvis had been cooperating with federal authorities investigating organized crime's infiltration of the entertainment industry. Beginning in the early 70s, Elvis provided information about drug trafficking, identified promoters connected to mob families, described extortion attempts targeting Vegas performers. The FBI documented multiple death threats against Elvis between 74 and 77. In early 77, intelligence indicated a contract had been placed on Elvis's life. Not a theoretical threat. An actual contract with money attached, offered to professional killers. The FBI discussed protective measures. They suggested limiting public appearances, increasing Graceland security. They also discussed more extreme options: relocation, identity change, witness protection, the possibility of arranging Elvis's disappearance if the threat became too severe. Elvis's financial situation added desperation. Despite earning hundreds of millions, Elvis faced serious difficulties. Colonel Parker took 50% of everything. Elvis owed millions in back taxes. Multiple lawsuits drained his assets. Financial analysts concluded Elvis was months away from bankruptcy, possibly weeks from having to sell Graceland. Financial ruin, death threats from organized crime, FBI contacts who could facilitate disappearance, crushing exhaustion, conversations about escape. The pieces formed a pattern suggesting disappearing might not just be desirable but necessary for survival. August 16, 2016. Exactly 39 years later. A tourist at Graceland during Elvis Week filmed the mansion grounds. Casual footage to show friends. Nothing unusual for 30 seconds. Then a figure appeared. A groundskeeper in employee uniform working near the rear gate in a restricted area. The tourist didn't notice while filming, but when people saw the video online they began commenting, pointing out details. The groundskeeper looked familiar, very familiar. The way he moved matched Elvis's distinctive walk from later years. That slight hitch in his step from health issues and years of athletic performances. When he briefly turned toward the camera, facial recognition experts noted striking similarities to Elvis's bone structure. The jawline, the nose, the spacing of features. The build matched Elvis's body type from the late 70s. The hair was most striking, silver gray instead of black, but with the same texture, thickness, styled in a way echoing Elvis's preferred look. Even the cowlick pattern seemed to match photographs from his final years. The video exploded. 5 million views within 3 days. 20 million within a week. Facial recognition software produced results some experts found compelling. Elvis impersonators insisted the man moved in ways impersonators can't replicate. Something authentic about the gesture suggesting someone being Elvis naturally, not performing him. If this was Elvis, he'd be 81 in 2016. The figure appeared late 70s or early 80s. The right age. The setting was Graceland during the busiest week, creating cover for someone who wanted to be seen but not approached. Graceland responded swiftly. Kevin Barmer issued a statement within 24 hours. The groundskeeper was a regular employee named Bill, who'd worked there over a decade. Bill just happened to resemble Elvis. But Bill was never made available for interviews. No additional photographs released. No employment records provided. No statements from other employees. The timing seemed too perfect. Why during Elvis Week? Why in a restricted area? Why did he appear just long enough to be captured but not approached? Why did he vanish after the video went viral? If you wanted to remind the world the mystery remains unsolved, if you wanted to keep the question alive for a new generation, this would be exactly how. A brief appearance. Plausible deniability. But enough similarity to ensure people keep wondering. The groundskeeper video isn't isolated. It's part of a pattern stretching 46 years. 4 days after the funeral, a woman at a Kalamazoo Burger King insisted Elvis ordered a Whopper with extra pickles exactly how Elvis always ordered. Memphis gas station. Oklahoma library. Arkansas grocery store. Florida post office. Over 400 documented sightings. Always ordinary places. Never stages or casinos. Reports from ordinary working people with reputations to protect. Everything to lose by reporting. Yet they do it anyway because they feel compelled to document what they saw. If even one of these 400 sightings was real, if just a single report accurately documented Elvis living anonymously, then everything we've been told for nearly 5 decades is a lie. People don't believe Elvis is alive because they're foolish. They believe it because the official story never felt right. Because the evidence contains too many contradictions, too many anomalies, too many unexplained details. They believe it because legends aren't supposed to end on bathroom floors surrounded by prescription bottles. Because Elvis represented transformation, proof that ordinary people can become extraordinary. Accepting his story ended in such diminished circumstances feels like betraying everything he represented. They believe it because sometimes the impossible explanation makes more sense than the official one. A funeral body that didn't behave like a corpse. A death certificate ignoring obvious toxicity. FBI files revealing threats and protection discussions. Financial desperation. Escape conversations. A groundskeeper who looks exactly like aged Elvis. 400 credible sightings. Individually, each piece might be explainable. Collectively, they create a picture harder to dismiss than most want to admit. So maybe the real question isn't whether Elvis is alive. Maybe it's whether we're willing to admit the evidence doesn't definitively prove he's dead. Whether we can look at all these anomalies and still feel completely certain about what happened August 16, 77. The funeral body that felt like refrigerated wax. 14 drugs not mentioned on the death certificate. FBI file documenting threats. Financial collapse weeks away. Escape conversations. Groundskeeper video. Graceland can't explain. 400 sightings from people with no reason to lie. These aren't fantasies. They're documented facts. Facts that don't fit the official narrative. Facts that keep this question alive decade after decade. If Elvis had survived, if he'd managed to disappear and build a quiet life away from consuming fame, would you want to know the truth? Would you want him found? Or would you prefer to let the king keep his peace, wherever he is, and simply be grateful for what he left behind? Because maybe that's the real test of love, not holding on so tightly you crush what you cherish, but caring enough to let go, to allow someone who gave everything the simple gift of privacy if that's what they needed to survive. The evidence seems overwhelming. The anomalies appear undeniable. Yet one thing remains certain. This question will never die. Not as long as people remember Elvis. Not as long as clues keep surfacing. Not as long as that Graceland video keeps playing. Not as long as we're willing to admit that sometimes truth is stranger than official stories allow. What if we all missed something hiding in plain sight? What if the biggest mystery in music history is still unsolved because it was never meant to be solved? What if the king's greatest performance wasn't on stage but the way he disappeared? And if that's true, then perhaps the greatest gift we can give him isn't finding him, it's letting him stay gone.